Okay. Ready?
Ready.
Chalo. Jaya Radha Madhava Jabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jabihari Jana Vallabha Varadari Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Varadari Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Shodananana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Pravikacharya Astutar Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Pravikacharya Astutar Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopana Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Granthara Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaura Premanande, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today, I thought about reading from Bhagavad Gita, as it is, by Srila Prabhupada, chapter 14, text 17. This is the three modes of material nature. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam rajasho lobha evacha pramada moho tamaso bhavato jnanam evacha. Translation. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance, develop foolishness, madness, and illusion. Purport. Since the present civilization is not very congenial to the living entities, Krishna consciousness is recommended. Through Krishna consciousness, society will develop the mode of goodness. When the mode of goodness is developed, people will see things as they are. In the mode of ignorance, people are just like animals and cannot see things clearly. In the mode of ignorance, for example, they do not see that by killing one animal, they are taking the chance of being killed by the same animal in the next life. Because people have no education in actual knowledge, they become irresponsible. To stop this irresponsibility, education for developing the mode of goodness of the people in general must be there. When they are actually educated in the mode of goodness, they will become sober, in full knowledge of things as they are. Then people will be happy and prosperous. Even if the majority of the people aren't happy and prosperous, if a certain percentage of the population develops Krishna consciousness and becomes situated in the mode of goodness, then there is the possibility of peace and prosperity all over the world. Otherwise, if the world is devoted to the modes of passion and ignorance, there can be no peace or prosperity. In the mode of passion, people become greedy, and their hankering for sense gratification or sense enjoyment has no limit. One can see that even if one has enough money and adequate arrangements for sense gratification, there is neither happiness nor peace of mind. That is not possible, because one is situated in the mode of passion. If one wants happiness at all, his money will not help him. He has to elevate himself to the mode of goodness by practicing Krishna consciousness. When one is engaged in the mode of passion, not only is he mentally unhappy, but his profession and occupation are also very troublesome. He has to devise so many plans and schemes to acquire money, enough money to maintain his status quo. This is all miserable. In the mode of ignorance, people become mad. Being distressed by their circumstances, they take shelter of intoxication, and thus they sink further into ignorance. Their future in life is very dark. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hare Pre Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sundubhya Evacha Patithanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnabhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripatam Maham Vande Shri Gurundinataranam. Hare Krishna. So the reason why I chose this verse is so we can see things as they are, like what Srila Prabhupada says. When I first read the Bhagavad Gita, there was a statement that I found really interesting. Srila Prabhupada, he says, or he asks, how do you identify a well-dressed fool? He may wear a nice business suit. He might have a very expensive tie. But how do you identify if he's a fool or not?
Well, that's a trick question, because this is Southern California, everybody's a fool.
Exactly. But Srila Prabhupada, he said you can tell by his speech. And Prabhupada, he said as soon as he speaks, he reveals himself at once. So when you speak to people, what are they actually saying? Do they have any real value to us? Or is it just me, myself, and I? See, this whole world revolves around this attitude of being served in the material world. Instead of serving Krishna, we want to take the position of Krishna. I want to be the center of the universe. I want to be the center of this circle, you know. So this propensity of being served, this attitude, is actually what's getting us in trouble. When I speak to people on book distribution, I love asking questions. I like to know where are they at in life? Are they just in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance? And this is actually one of the verses that I ask them to read. When I ask people to read on book distribution, it gives me two, you can say, ideas. One, how often do they read, right? Are they stumbling along with the words, or are they fluent? Do they read nicely? And so when I tell them, I have a verse that describes you. They say, really? I tell them, yeah. So I make them read this verse. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance develops foolishness, madness, and illusion. And I tell them, you are situated in the mode of goodness just by coming to this table. See, Krishna consciousness is so rare. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes among hundreds and thousands of people. Srila Prabhupada, he translates that as millions of people. Only one will endeavor for perfection. And among those that achieve perfection, only one hardly knows who Krishna is in truth. So Krishna consciousness is like a very rare jewel, and we're distributing it to everyone that we meet. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he doesn't make any distinction who can receive it or who doesn't, who is fit and unfit. So that's what Krishna consciousness is. Srila Prabhupada, he says, we're turning animals into human beings. See? I was also questioning evolution, right? In the modern educational system, Srila Prabhupada, he calls it a spiritual slaughterhouse. Because they don't tell you what is the soul, what is the purpose of life, who is God, and what is that relationship that we have with others and that relationship with God himself. They don't teach you that. They teach you how to be a good worker, right? A good work unit. They don't teach you how to think outside the box. And if someone, and we were just reading the other day, if a professor even talks about the soul, God, religion, he gets fired. He's asked to leave his post. So you can imagine the society that we're going towards, you know. And a lot of people, they told Srila Prabhupada, oh, Swamiji, we're making so much advancement. Srila Prabhupada, he says, yeah, but which direction? And then he uses the example of a moth. A moth is advancing, but to where? Towards fire. So not only is the moth approaching the fire and is going to lose its life, but it's towards the wrong direction. So this materialistic idea of the more we have, the more we accumulate, is actually a wrong and a bad idea. We've seen it time and time and time again. And we hear, just like in the purport, it says that those that have money, they have to work so hard to maintain the status quo, this image, you know. I went to school down south in San Diego, and a lot of people there, they like to dress very nicely, right? But when you actually know their financial status, they're just living paycheck to paycheck. So this, and Srila Prabhupada, he always emphasized simple living and higher thinking. With the devotees, we live very simple and humble lives, and we don't need much to be happy. Mahatma Gandhi, he said, there's enough for the world's needs, but not for the world's greed, right? Because Srila Prabhupada, he explains that sarva kama, meaning unlimited desires, is compared to fire. When you put gasoline in fire, does it go out? No, it actually burns more. So similarly, when the living entity keeps trying to fulfill his sense gratification, it's actually doing him harm than good. Just like Srila Prabhupada, he uses this example of a camel. A camel, he chews on thorny bushes, and he likes the taste, but he doesn't know that that taste that he's enjoying is his own blood. And in the Arctics, there's hunters. Do you know how they catch wolves? They put a double-sided blade in an iceberg. They melt the ice and they stick it in there. And what they do is they cut their finger and then they put it on the blade. And the wolf smells this blood. And what does it do? It starts licking the blade. And this enjoyment that he is thinking that he's tasting is actually his own blood. So not only will he lose his life, and that's how the hunter captures the animal. And it reminds me also, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it describes there's a certain deer in the Himalayas. This deer is known as the musk deer. It's like where you get that perfume or that cologne smell from. And this musk deer, it emanates this fragrance from its navel glands. And it gets so intoxicated, it doesn't know where it's coming from. And it tries to chase after this scent. It goes into the forest, it goes here and there, and eventually it collapses out of exhaustion. And then the hunter captures it and extracts all of the musk from it. So similarly, the living entity, we are trying to chase happiness in the material world. But we don't know that real happiness comes from serving Krishna. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he tells us Srila Prabhupada, he translates Dharma as constitutional position. Jivera Swarup Hoy Krishna Nichadas. The living entity is an eternal servant of Krishna. Eternal servant of Krishna. And I was distributing books today. And when I was trying to hand out a flyer, this man said, "Oh no, I'm happily avoiding cults." And you know what he was serving? His dog. You know, they have these carriers, or they look like baby carriages or strollers, but they're meant for dogs. So I told them, we're serving God, but you're serving dog, you know. What's more intelligent? So you can see that people are in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance, depending on our interaction with them. So just like the sun, it illuminates darkness. At night, we don't see what things are. And Srila Prabhupada describes you might see a coiled rope, and in the darkness, you might mistaken it for a venomous snake, serpent. So you become afraid. But as soon as you turn on the lights, you find out, oh, it's just a rope. So that fear goes away. So similarly, the sun is compared to the Vedic knowledge, or real knowledge. And knowledge is a funny thing, because a lot of people, they take so much pride in material knowledge. There's a place for that, but ultimately, Krishna says, Mrityu sarva haraschaham. I take everything away, everything. Our wealth, position in life, our little placard that we're so proud of, you know. And so, yeah, material knowledge is there, but what's more important is spiritual knowledge. Who am I? What is the purpose of life? Why is there so much suffering in the world? And what is the solution? I tell people in book distribution, people know the problems, but they don't know the answer. There was once a poster on the wall. It had the different generals, you know, the most important people in history. Napoleon, George Washington, the different leaders of society. And there was a caption, and it says, everyone knows the problem, but only this man knows the answer. And in the center was a picture of Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada, he worked so hard to establish this movement. Imagine being 70, 69 years old, coming to America, a foreign country, no contacts, no friends, And it's described he had a briefcase. That's all Srila Prabhupada had. He had a few books with him, grains, or you can say, oats, because he didn't know if he could find vegetables here, because he knew that in America we were so accustomed to eating meat. He said, at least I have a month or two to survive, And not only that, but it's described he had maybe, if he could convert it, $7 in his pocket. That's all he had. And so many times he asked his god brothers, please come and help me. I want to start this Krishna consciousness movement. But not one letter came back. He said, please send some brahmacharis to help me. Nobody helped him. And Srila Prabhupada, he worked so hard trying to turn animal beings to human beings, right? It's described that human beings, we share 4 basic needs with animals: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And there was a class by a nice devotee. He says that an animal may defend with claws and nails, but a human being is a polished animal. They say man is a rational animal, right? So instead of defending with claws, teeth, and nails, we're defending with nuclear weapons, right? So we misuse our intelligence and we create more and more and more destruction. An animal runs on 4 legs, but a human being runs on 4 wheels, right? And an animal may sleep on the floor outside, but a human being sleeps at the Hilton. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. It's just basically polished animal life, what Srila Prabhupada says. And it says that a man is known by the company he keeps. Who are our friends, right? Who do we surround ourselves with? Are they... Let me ask this question first. What is the most fastest growing religion? Buddhism? Okay. Islam, okay. Nate, you have a...
I'm not going to venture a guess. I don't know.
Okay. There's one, materialism. Yeah, same. And that's what's blinding the people, the innocent people, There's a propaganda. Consume as much as you want and get service as much as you can. And there was a atheistic person. He says, beg, borrow, or steal, get ghee, right? No matter what you do. So similarly, in the West, whatever you do just to satisfy your sense gratification, do it. It doesn't matter how much trouble you go through, how much people you hurt, right? My spiritual master, His Holiness Badrinath Swami Maharaj, he was telling me that he was in a convention and there was different positions there. And there was I don't know what they call it, like a doorkeeper. When you're a bellboy, when you ring a bell, they attend to you. So Maharaj asked him, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you consider success? And so next to it, there was business cards, It was piling up. So this this bellboy, he had his own business card, and without saying a word, he put it on top of everyone. So everyone wants to be on top. It's actually the perverted reflection of our natural position in the spiritual world. Here we want to be served, but in the spiritual world, the highest position is to be a servant. Das das anudas, to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. See, Krishna, even though He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, He takes more pleasure serving His devotees. This is one thing that I really love about Krishna, is that even when He's a creator of everything, maintains everything, He's the original person. Ishvaras Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha, Anadir Govinda Sarvakarna Karna. That Krishna is the original cause. He has no other cause. He is the cause of all causes. So that's Krishna's position. And in the spiritual world, Krishna takes more pleasure in service. So what does that tell us? That this material world, we're going the wrong way. Just like, imagine your exit is 2 exits away, you know. You need to exit there. But instead, you argue with someone and you miss your exit. So not only do you have to make a U-turn, but you lose time. And this human form of life is described as Prahlad Maharaj is the rarest body to achieve after revolving 8,400,000 types of bodies that we have gone through. Why? Because the human body gives us a chance to break the cycle of birth and death. Not only that, but to render service to Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada, he describes that even a tree gives service. Right, a tree. Trinadapi sunichena tarapi sahishnana. That one must be more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. See, if you observe a tree, you know, a dog marks it, right? You know, a dog, he marks his territory. And young people, they carve their names, right? J plus S with the heart. But the tree doesn't protest at all. And this tree, it gives flowers, its fruits. And when it's asked to give its body, it gives its body for wood, for firewood. So even the trees are serving. So that service attitude is actually what makes the living entity happy. The husband serves the wife serves the husband. When we have children, we serve them. We attend to their needs, right? 2 o'clock in the morning, the child is crying. See, instead of sleeping, they check on the child. And Srila Prabhupada, he says that the closest thing to actual love is the love between a mother and a child. It's supposed, if they're good parents, it should be unconditional, right? And unfortunately, due to the Kali Yuga's progression, there's so many kids, they're very disrespectful, right? Not only that, but they can't be controlled. I was distributing books the other day, and I don't know, it's a new thing now, I guess. Just like they have leashes for dogs, they have wrist leashes for children. This mother, she had two wristbands, you know. One was the son and one was the daughter. So kids, they don't know how to show respect. In Vedic culture, you need the blessings of your seniors to be successful in life, right? You touch their feet and you ask for blessings. But in the West, they disrespect and they leave. So the Western civilization is, you can say, approaching a very dark future. It's described that the people in the mode of ignorance, neither is cleanliness nor truthfulness found in these people. Right? Cleanliness. This is what makes us different from animals. I was distributing books, and this lady, she had 3 dogs with her. And the dog was probably from here. I was here, and then the dog was probably at that mat. And I could smell this dog, and they're just hugging this dog, kissing the dog. They don't... What is cleanliness to them? And truthfulness, right? When you ask people, how much do you make? They'll increase it. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada, he says, when you ask an old man, what is your age? They'll decrease it. So if the man is 80 years old, he'll say, I'm 70 years old, I'm 60 years old. So neither is truthfulness, cleanliness found in these people. And he was talking about karma. When you kill an animal, they don't know that the same animal will kill you in the next life. So karma is it's actually a law, nature's law, Krishna's law. And those that break this law, they're prone for punishment, right? Growing up in the West, we didn't know anything about karma. We just thought you can do whatever you want, right? When you see an animal, you kick it, right? Or when you see a beetle, you tie it up on a string, you burn it, you get a magnifying glass, and you make the heat from the sun so concentrated or focused, is so small, and you chase ants with it. So many living entities, we cause so much pain for them because we're in the mode of ignorance. We didn't know any better. So Srila Prabhupada, he came again to teach us this karma, life after life. And what is the best education? Krishna says, Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam, Pavitram idam uttamam, Pratyaksha-vagamam dharmyam, Susukam kartum avyamyam. That this Bhagavad Gita that he spoke to Arjuna is the king of education, Raja Vidya. And then Pavitram Uttamam, the most secret of all secrets, and it's the purest knowledge. See, I was distributing books, and this lady, she said, "Oh, I have a Bhagavad Gita." And I said, "Do you have it as it is?" And she said, "What's the difference?" So I used this example. I told her, milk touched by the lips of a serpent becomes poison. And she looked at me, and I asked her, "What does that mean?" And she says that milk is pure, but if it's touched by the lips of a serpent, it becomes poisonous. So I told her exactly. There's many versions of the Bhagavad Gita. Actually, in the English language, there's around 300 versions of the Bhagavad Gita. But none of them have made devotees of Krishna. Only Srila Prabhupada. Why? Because he was a pure devotee. He wanted to preach the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna consciousness as it is. And a lot of people, they tell the innocent mass what they want to hear, not what they need to hear, right? But Srila Prabhupada, he says, if you call a thief, is that wrong? No, right? Because one, you're telling everyone, you're warning everyone that this person's a thief. And two is that Lord Shiva, he's known for destroying ignorance. And one of his teachings is to destroy ignorance immediately. So when I go on book distribution, I may preach a little heavy, but it's something that they need to hear. So Srila Prabhupada's Gita, as it is the most purest and authentic and bona fide version because he's actually practicing the teachings in the Bhagavad Gita. The Guru Parampara system, disciplic succession to the disciple, and then the disciple becomes Guru, and he goes down like that. So this knowledge was passed down from Krishna to Lord Brahma, from Lord Brahma to his son Narada, Narada to Madhava. He goes all the way down to Srila Prabhupada, and then he makes disciples. Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, he says that just like universities are meant for first-class students, Krishna consciousness is meant for first-class human beings, right? Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is so important because a lot of people, they have a lot of different ideas of what the goal of life is, right? Who am I? Am I just this bag? I asked this person, I said, "Who are you?" This lady said, "Oh, I'm an American, I'm a teacher." So I told them, "You know what this bag, this body is?" And they said, "What?" I said, "It's a bag full of mucus, bile, bones, urine, and feces." So she laughed, and I said, "Isn't it true?" And she said, "Yeah." So I told her, "You're the eternal soul within that body. You are what's animating the body. As soon as the soul leaves the body, it becomes a dead corpse." And I also told her, "You're not the mind. You're not the intelligence." A lot of people, they say, "my mind," right? So who is that I that's thinking my? So the word my implies ownership. So who is that I? It's the soul. And the soul is a eternal fragmental individual, and is part of Krishna, part and parcel of Krishna. So as a part of something, we should give service to the whole, doesn't it? Just like this hand is a piece of my body, it's a part of my body. So this hand should do what I should ask it to do, right? If it doesn't, it becomes worthless to me. So when the living entity refuses to serve Krishna, when the living entity refuses to bow down to Krishna, he's actually in Maya. He thinks I'm the doer, I'm the controller. And what do people know about austerity, right? People think just satisfy your senses to the unlimited, you can say, degree, right? You know, someone asked me, what's it like to be a monk? And I said, it's joyful. I said, why? I told him, you wake up early, you don't eat meat, you don't do intoxication, you don't have illicit relations with women, and you focus on something more important than yourself. And then so I told this person, would you like to become a monk? And he said, no way. And I said, why not? And he said, oh, that's too difficult. So I told him this is called conditioning. So there's a strange disease called jaundice. Do you guys know this disease?
Yeah, I had jaundice.
You had jaundice? What's a symptom of jaundice?
Yellow, body gets yellow color.
Besides that?
Liver weaks.
Yeah.
Liver hurts.
But what does that cause?
That cause weakness.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada explains that when someone has jaundice, something naturally sweet will taste very bitter. Yeah. Because of that bile deficiency. So similarly, we may not want to come to the temple, we may not want to serve, we may not want to read Prabhupada's books. It may seem bitter, but it's actually the same medicine for our conditioning. So we're trying to help people understand what is the actual goal of life. Why am I here? And a thoughtful person will ask these questions, right? It's not, what's the newest restaurant? What's the newest movie, right? Who's the newest designer? How much is that bag? No, we don't talk about this stuff. And what do people know about self-control, right? Self-control means controlling the mind and the senses. It's not just, the mind is compared to a sponge. It absorbs everything throughout the day. And then that has a subtle effect on our consciousness. In the purport, it was talking about greed. You know, people that have money, $1 million is not enough. They have to get 2 million. And then when they get 2 million, 2 million is not enough again. They want 3 million. So this mode of passion, greed, develops. And how much can we really enjoy this so-called luxury lifestyle that we have? It can be taken away at any moment. And it was describing how people in the mode of passion, they're mentally unhappy and their occupation becomes troublesome. You know, I was distributing books and there was this man, he looked very, like I said, a well-dressed fool, right? I asked him, what do you do? He said, I own a chain of business. And I said, that's wonderful. What do you do with your money? And he looked at me, and you can tell he didn't want to tell me. I asked him, please share. He said, I feed my family. I said, okay, what else? He said, I take care of my friends. And I said, what else? And then that's it. That eccentric circle, it just radiates to me, myself, my family, my nation, that's it. So greed develops. They don't think about anything else besides their immediate family. And this body was born in the Philippines. And the Philippines, I heard, is like India. It's a very poverty-restricting country. But the Philippines, they have no idea about Vedic culture. So that's the big difference. And when I first came here, it was like a culture shock. The first thing, I don't want to say it on the mic, but the one thing I noticed is that we can't just do whatever we want. In the Philippines, you have some type of restriction, but it's not as much here, right? In the West, you can't, anyway. So millionaires, despite having wealth, followers, and fame, what do you hear in the news? Suicide. They're taking their own life. Despite having wealth, followers, and fame, which the whole world is chasing after, they're still not happy. So that means there's something missing in the heart. And what is that? Service to Krishna. See, Krishna is the only thing that can fully satisfy the soul, because that relationship with Krishna is eternal. So why not cultivate that relationship? Every relationship that we establish in this world, it's temporary. But that relationship with Krishna, it goes on life after life after life. And Krishna is so kind that He accompanies us in the heart as a super soul. He gives us the intelligence. Not only that, but He fulfills our desires at the time of death. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajit yanti kalevaram tam tami vaiti konteya siddhatad bhava bhavataha. That whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, he attains that without fail. So what are we thinking of when we close our eyes, right? Are we thinking of a woman? I was distributing books at the harbor, and there was this, he was a pretty good-looking fellow, you know. He had a lot of friends, and then he said, "Oh, I'm addicted to women." So I told him, "You'll be a woman in your next life." So he looked at me and said, "How do you know?" And I told him, "Your attachment brings you." And I told him about karma and reincarnation. And he got a little bit more serious, you know, after speaking to him. So I told him, "Why do you think that is?" And I told him, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, while contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. And then what's the next verse? From anger, complete delusion arises. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So this attachment and lust is there's different degrees of lust, right? Just like a child, when it's in the candy store, it wants that big lollipop, right? So that's lust, but it's a different degree than an adult. An adult, all he thinks about is sense gratification. How can I enjoy? But that enjoyment is the same source of misery when it's taken away. And I told this young man that, I said, you know, what happens when you can't find a relationship, you know? What happens when you can't find that itch that you're trying to scratch, right? What if you can't do that? And I can tell in his face that this is his life. Money, women, and drugs. That's it. There's no higher purpose in life. So I told him, that's a very sad life that you're living. And then he can tell that I really cared about him. And I told him, please take one of these books, you know. There's more to life than just these three things. I was distributing books today. I'll end with this because we're almost out of time. Are we going till 8 o'clock?
Yeah. We are 7:56.
Okay, thank you. So I was distributing books today, and Ram Vilas Prabhu, he came with me. And he was observing me, and he was telling me, wow, you know, how do you get them to stop at your table? So I told him, in this Kali Yuga, people have very short attention spans. You have about 2, at most 3 minutes before they start losing interest, right? They're like little kids. They can't pay attention. So I told him you should say something that will, you can say, have a lasting effect, you know. So I use words like loneliness, right? What else? Anxiety. Depression. I met a psychologist yesterday, and she told me every 40 seconds someone commits suicide. And the same psychologist, she told me that as young as 6 years old, they're now diagnosed with depression and anxiety. Little children. How sad is that? Instead of going out and enjoying and having fun being a kid, they're worrying about so many things. See? So we're living artificial lives, and that's one of the reasons why people are unhappy. They're looking for happiness where there is no happiness, like a mirage. And Srila Prabhupada describes that the happiness in this material world is like a drop of water in the desert. How really satisfying is that? So when we absorb ourselves in Shastra, in Krishna consciousness, serving the devotees, it's actually it's the ocean of bliss, right? But like I said, we're so conditioned in this material world. We don't want to serve. We want to be served. We want to take the position of Krishna, but that's unnatural. So, is there any questions or comments or corrections? I don't know if we have a mic, but okay.
Great speech, I liked it, especially the part about the mind, the body, and the attachment to labels.
Mm-hmm.
I think Philippines, they don't call it the Vedic culture, but I have heard that they have Ganesha statues and snakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada explains that there was only one flag in the whole world. There was only one book for the whole world. There was only one God for the whole world. There was one occupation. So in the Vedic culture, you can see everywhere spread around. Thank you, Raj. And I was just listening to a lecture, and I think it's in Taiwan or Cambodia. When you're driving, you see a person shooting an arrow. And then you keep driving and driving, you see an arrow. And you keep driving and driving, and then there's a deer. So who is this character?
Lakshman.
Lord Ram, yeah. Even in Southeast Asia, they have a little bit of Eastern remnants there, you know. So, yeah. Thank you, Raj. Sure.
You mentioned, I think it's a joke, but casual conversation with a female, where she says, as a monk, we wake up at 6.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be a monk? Is being a monk simply that, or is it a mindset change? Which leads me to the other question, which said conditioning is very bad for the human race.
Mm-hmm.
We're all conditioned with all these material things. But even the spiritual world, is there a risk of becoming conditioned simply to go through the task without actually meeting the energy to it?
Okay.
Conditioning is always bad.
Thank you. So there's material conditioning and then there's spiritual conditioning. Material conditioning, like I was saying, is that accumulate more, consume, things like that. And, I also meet different people, and when I ask them, would you like to be a monk? And a lot of them, they want to. But due to their attachment, they can't. And so being a monk, it's not just waking up, but it's... So someone told me that being a monk means to be somewhat... Srila Prabhupada explains it first as brahmachari, or celibate, A monk is celibate. We don't entangle ourselves with women, right? So that's a monk. Not only that, but he lives in a monastery. So these are external, you can say, characteristics of a monk. But besides that, he's a little detached, renounced. And not only that, but he studies scriptures. And you can tell, a monk... They're trying to do welfare work for society. And material conditioning is bad in a sense that we become more absorbed in material things, And then spiritual conditioning, that's our natural, you can say, that's our natural state of mind, our natural state, yeah. I hope that answers. Somewhat. Okay. Sorry. Sometimes I can't remember the questions. You had a question, Arjun? Okay. Okay, it's 8:02. I think we're going to have prasadam.
Yeah, we have prasadam. The last session at 8:15.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.